Living in Chicago might save you money, but it also might quietly add a whole new set of monthly bills you were not planning for. And I'm not talking about the moving truck. I'm talking about the real cost of selling, buying again, and adding more driving into your life, replacing walkability and figuring out if the move actually gets you closer to the lifestyle you wanted in the first place. Because here's a mistake I see people making. They compare a Chicago condo payment to a suburban house payment, or they compare Illinois taxes to another state's taxes. And then they think that's the whole decision. It is not. The real question is, after you sell, after closing costs, after the next mortgage payment, after the car costs, after the commute, and after the lifestyle trade-offs, are you actually better off? Today, we're talking about the untold cost of living in Chicago. And if you're a current Chicago owner trying to decide whether to stay in the city, move to the suburbs, or leave Illinois completely, this is the framework I want you to understand before you make that move. Hello, I'm Anant Deoras, a 14-year Chicago realtor with the love of urbanism and a focus on relocation and selling. And I want to be very clear right up front. This is not an anti-suburban video. This is not an anti-out-of-state video. This is definitely not me telling you that staying in Chicago is always the right answer. For some people, leaving Chicago is absolutely the correct move. You might need more space, you might want a yard, your family needs may have changed. Maybe your work situation's changed, and because close the loop is no longer as valuable as it used to be. But the decision gets dangerous when you only compare the obvious numbers, because the obvious number is the price of the next home. The untold cost is everything around the home. And here's what makes this even more interesting. The citywide Chicago resale data does not show some dead seller market. For May 2026, resale townhomes had about 1.5 months of supply and a median sales price of $670. And the median property went under contract in about 7 days. For 2-bedroom, 2-bath resale condos, citywide Chicago, citywide, was sitting around 1.9 months of supply and a median sales price around $475,000. And the median property went under contract in about 10 days. So that's not simply a story about people running away. And if you want more recent info, just comment below. I'll be happy to get it for you. Chicago owners are rearranging their lives around space, payment, commute, lifestyle, and what they want the next 5 to 10 years to look like. The first untold cost is the one sellers feel before they even buy the next place. Your sale price is not your walk-away number. And I think that line matters because a lot of people look at their estimated home value online and start mentally spending the entire amount. But that is not how a real sale works. Let's say you sell a Chicago condo, around $400,000, and based on the seller cost structure we reviewed, you could be looking at roughly $27K in seller side costs before mortgage payoff, and doesn't include major repairs or a more aggressive prep budget. On a higher end sale, around $650, that could be closer to $41,000. Now, I want to be very clear here. Brokerage commissions is negotiable, and every transaction has its own facts. But the larger point is still true. There is a cost to exiting one property before you even step into the next one. You may have transfer taxes, title insurance, attorney fees, title charges, closing fees, miscellaneous title costs, and sometimes seller credits if the buyer negotiates them. So if you are thinking, I can sell my place and use all of that equity for the next move, slow down for a second. The equity is real, but the usable equity is what matters. That's why the first cost of living in Chicago is not the moving truck. It's the difference between what your home sells for and what you actually have left to work with. The second untold cost is the replacement home shock. This is where a lot of move-up buyers get surprised and they own a Chicago condo. They have equity. Maybe the market has been kind to them, and maybe they bought years ago, and on paper, they feel like they are in a strong position. And they might be, but equity helps you move. It does not magically make the next payment affordable. If you sell the 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, as I mentioned previously, and try to move into a Chicago townhome, citywide median sales resale pricing was about $670,000. This is May 2026. And towns aren't sitting around waiting for buyers. The median list to contract time, as I mentioned earlier, was about 7 days. That means that stay in Chicago move-up option can be expensive and competitive. Now, If you go to the suburbs, you might get more space or a yard, and for some households, that is the right trade. But the next question is, what are you adding to your life to get that space? A longer commute, a second car, more driving for basic errands, a different tax bill, house that needs more maintenance. This is where people make the mistake of comparing home prices to home price instead of comparing full lifestyle cost to full lifestyle cost. Because the move up decision is not about square footage, it's about what that square footage requires from you every single month. And this is exactly why I do not want you making this decision based on citywide data alone. Citywide data gives you the big picture, but your actual move is going to be neighborhood specific, property specific, and lifestyle specific. Probably most importantly, Lakeview does not have the same seller math as South Loop. A high-rise condo with a major monthly assessment does not behave the same way as a small walk-up building. A Chicago townhome is not the same decision as a single-family home in Oak Park, Evanston, Park Ridge, LaGrange, or Downers Grove. And leaving Illinois completely is another layer beyond that. So if you are sitting there wondering, should I sell my Chicago place, stay in the city, move to the suburbs, or leave the state? Hey, reach out. Let's look at your actual situation. I can pull the neighborhood level data for your current property, compare it against places that you're considering, and help you understand what the move really looks like before you make a decision. You can't easily unwind. And there's a link in the description and a QR code. If you go right up here, if you're on your TV, you can click on that QR code. You can go down in the comments, and let's schedule that consultation. Let's look at the math and the lifestyle. Actually, hopefully lines up before you make that move. This is the third cost, untold cost, of transportation, and this is the part that fits my channel because I talk a lot about walkability, transit, and biking, and how they all intersect with housing. I'm not anti-car. I have a car, full disclosure. But I want you to hear what even one paid-off car can cost. My car has no payment, and it still costs me about $560 a month, estimated around $6,700 a year. And that includes $283 a month for indoor parking, $50 a month in street parking, $100 a month in gas, insurance, maintenance, Illinois plates, and Chicago City stickers. And that doesn't include tickets, because for my car, that number happens to be zero. It does not include tolls, depreciation, or any of the big repair bills that eventually could, knock on wood, affect a car that gets older. Now, here is where leaving Chicago gets tricky, because some people move out of the city and reduce certain car costs. Maybe they get a driveway, maybe they do not need the indoor parking anymore. That is real. But if the move adds a second car, or if your weekly driving goes up, the savings can disappear fast. Gas changes, insurance changes, maintenance changes. Because mileage changes, tolls can become part of your weekly routine if you're moving between the city and the suburbs. And if your household goes from one car to two, some costs can double almost immediately. So when someone tells me they're leaving Chicago to save money, one of my first questions is, are you adding more car dependency to your life? The fourth untold cost is convenience. This one is harder to put into a spreadsheet, but people feel it after the move. In a lot of Chicago neighborhoods, you can leave your building and walk to coffee, dinner, and the gym, the lakefront, the train, the bus, a corner store, a park. You may still own a car, but the car is not always the center of every decision. And when you leave that environment, you may gain space, but you may also lose the casual convenience that made daily life easier. This is not about pretending every Chicago neighborhood is perfectly walkable. They are not. And this is not about pretending every suburb is some car-dependent nightmare. That is not true either. Plenty of suburbs have great downtowns, metro access, and strong main streets, but the specific location matters. There's a difference between living near a walkable downtown and living in a subdivision where every errand starts with a car key. And over time, that difference becomes part of your lifestyle budget. Maybe you drive more, maybe you spend more time planning simple errands, maybe social life becomes less spontaneous, maybe the kids' activities require more coordination, maybe a quick dinner out becomes a 20-minute drive instead of a 5-minute walk. None of those things automatically make the move wrong, no. But they do mean the move has a cost beyond the mortgage. The fifth untold cost is the out-of-state fantasy. And now listen, I understand why people look outside Illinois. Taxes are a real issue. I mean, I know personally, carrying costs are a real issue. Some people want warmer weather, newer homes, more space, or a fresh start. I get it. But the mistake is assuming that lower taxes automatically equals lower total cost. That is not always how life works. You might want one lower bill and pick up another one that's somewhere else. And maybe it is higher insurance. Maybe it's bigger HOA. Maybe the area looks affordable online, but looks like it can be deceiving. The infrastructure is not caught up with the growth. Maybe the home is newer, but everything around it requires driving. Maybe the climate changes. And utility bills are changes on how much time you can actually want to spend outside. The point is that not another state is bad. The point is that every place has a trade-off. Chicago's trade-offs are obvious because people talk about them constantly. The out-of-state trade-offs can be harder to see from a listing description and a few sunny drone shots. So before you decide that leaving Illinois solves everything, and ask yourself a better question. What am I really buying, and what am I giving up to get it? So here's the framework I would use if I were in your shoes. First, figure out your real walkaway number after selling. Not the fantasy number, not the online estimate, the real number. After the transition costs, payoff, and any prep you need to do. Second, compare the next monthly payment against your current life. And not just your current mortgage. If you are moving from a condo to a townhome or from a townhome to a house, the payment is only one piece of the decision. Third, price out transportation honestly. If that move adds more driving, more tolls, or another vehicle, that belongs in the math. Fourth, ask whether you are replacing convenience with space, because sometimes that trade is worth it, and sometimes it quietly makes daily life harder. And finally, do not make this decision based on the loudest headline. People are not just leaving Chicago. They're making different choices based on where they are in life. Some people stay in the city and change neighborhoods. Some should move to the suburbs. And even some should leave Illinois and not look back. The smart move is the one where the numbers, the lifestyle, and the next chapter all match.